as the use of will and ritual combined to create change in the world without any restraint on what that change might be. No hypocritical pretending that we are appealing to a higher force.
Well, have you been to a satanic marriage? I mean, have they ceremony?
Sure.
What was it like?
I've conducted them.
You married people?
Sure.
In the name of Satan?
If you want to use that terminology,
Well,
yeah.
what did they
it would
do?
be
I mean,
satanic.
Well,
it varies.
what I'm
Each
trying to-
marriage
We've all
is different.
seen Christian wedding ceremonies.
Right.
So we know the philosophical frame of reference in which that occurs, but we don't know philosophically what's happening.
Well, a satanic marriage is usually they're considerably smaller, more intimate, and because you have a gathering of people who are completely for you, and each one is different from the other. We don't have a set rule as to what the marriage will
Unlike the
consist of.
Christian church that has an assembly line idea, a certain dogma is read, two people agree to it, you are now part of the Christian community in marriage. We feel that each individual should form a union with whoever they wish to.
But of course, Nickolas, that's because in Christianity there is a prior philosophical commitment as to what marriage represents. And so what I'm saying
marriage
is...
to us, to Satanism in brief, marriage represents what you want it to represent. We believe each individual is entitled to decide what their life should consist of. There is no bond to any supernatural entity.
And even to decide if you even want to be married
Marriage
at all.
is not mandatory, nor is... Nothing is mandatory.
Would you marry two lesbians?
I personally do not believe that homosexuality is a natural practice any more than you do. And I don't...
Would you marry them if they thought it was and wanted to be? I mean, Anton LaVey in the Satanic Bible certainly condones it.
They would certainly be able to marry themselves and consider themselves married.
Well, it may sound like an absurd question, but suppose Joe wants to marry his golden retriever. If we're all animals, I mean, can Joe conceivably marry his dog?
Speaking for the Werewolf Order, which is my organization in particular, we do not feel that homosexuality is a healthy or natural or safe or hygienic practice.
But you're contradicting Anton in the Satanic Bible.
No. What I would agree with him in this sense, that I do not prescribe any moral onus against it. What I'm saying is, do whatever you want to do, but accept the consequences that come with it. And
well, you're not answering the question about the golden retriever, and I'm not...
No, I don't. I believe bestiality is as repugnant to me as it is to you, but not for moral reasons, but because of natural reasons.
Well, but earlier you said we're all animals. I mean, an animal's an animal.
Well,
so what's the difference?
Animals don't breed.
Wouldn't mate with a Siamese cat.
Yeah, only humans.
So neither would a human
only
and a
humans who are so neurotic that they break the natural law.
Without getting too intellectual here, you do have some
yes, I have a strong
differentiation.
See, that's something
that in effect you're not willing to call morals, but in effect places you as a human animal on a higher rung of evolution's ladder, giving you certain priorities over what you do to the rest.
No, absolutely not. In fact, I believe that animals should be protected by humans, as it is our duty as the inheritors of the earth to protect the ecology, to protect wildlife, and satanic ecology is forefront on our agenda. We need to protect the earth that we live on and our natural environment.
Let's talk about a worship service. Okay, you have sexual rituals, compassionate rituals, and destructive rituals.
And many more. Those are three.
Well, those are the three main ones Anton talks about.
In the Satanic Bible.
Zena, these are the three put forth in the Satanic Bible. Describe them. Destruction ritual. What is a destruction ritual?
Well, we believe in vengeance. We don't believe in turning the other cheek. You keep turning the other cheek and you run out of cheeks. We feel that if you are wronged in some way, that you take it out with the person responsible, whether that's directly or indirectly, whether that's actually going to the person and addressing the problem or the issue specifically, or whether it's working it out through ritual.
May I ask, before you go on, have you never had an experience in your life, I certainly have, where I felt I was wronged by someone else, only as I matured later in life to discover, in fact, that in that circumstance I was the one who was wrong, and it was my own selfish ego that placed upon it the imprimatur of saying I was wrong. So that, but what I'm saying is, if you claim the right to get even with anyone at any time, what if you're wrong? What if you do a destruction ritual?
Well, how do you know that you were wrong?
And what's wrong with your selfish ego? I would think your selfish ego is a healthier gauge of reality than some moral system found
I
in
would think it's very blinding, because in fact,
by instinct, how could that be blinding?
We're getting back to our animal natures. We are beasts, and we decide from gut instinct whether we have been wronged or not.
Excuse me, you've never done, Zena, you've never done anything wrong and thought you were right?
Let's back up even further. Maybe if what you were experiencing was some youthful ego thing that you think you were wrong, what about infants that are passed from one relative to another, and they're fine, and they get to one person and they just start screaming, and there's something there that's wrong, and an infant can sense it. Is that infant reacting wrong? Is that a wrong reaction? Well, I would say that on a much more simplistic level, that is the way we react. If we instinctively feel that something's not right, we have to go by gut intuition.
What if you're wrong? What if you're wrong?
What is wrong and right? And in our case, we are making up our reality. We decide what's right and wrong. You are letting the Bible or Jesus Christ or whatever God may be
even
decide.
Common sense. I mean, even leaving God out of it, to suggest that you can make up your own reality, my goodness, that's what they did in Tiananmen Square. That's what they did in Germany in 1933. I mean,
and that's what they're doing in America in
These are examples of people who created their own reality.
Everyone creates their own reality. The thing is, you speak for a consensus of reality which is acceptable. We speak for one which at this point in history is not acceptable. Well, so it's just a question of who manipulates the media, who has the most money to put their reality forth.
But would you pardon me saying that I find a world in which your ability to conjure your own reality as you perceive it to be a very frightening world for people like me, because you see, I'm guided by some codified rules that tell me what is right and wrong. In your world, I'm not so sure I would feel very safe.
Well,
you would see that's your problem. You have in the satanic world of the future, Christian churches will be allowed to continue because they pose no threat to us. We don't need Christianity. Christianity needs us.
Sure.
So we'll let it.
Sure. Tell that to the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto. Why, we're not going to put you in gas ovens. We're not going to kill you. We just want you to wear an armband.
No, I'm not saying that.
I mean, we just want you.
No. I'm not saying I'm a humanitarian. Don't try to whitewash me.
Hitler created a reality. Was it evil?
Hitler was a masterful black magician. Of course, he created a reality. Was it evil? I'm telling you that I don't believe in good and evil, and nor can anyone decide what is good and evil. It's all based on historical and cultural values. In my point of view, the Christian religion is evil, in quotes, because it is negative.
Nickolas, I'm not a Jewish survivor of Buchenwald sitting here with a number tattooed on my arm. If I were, frankly, I'd be incensed. I'd be outraged that you suggest.
Well, they are incensed and outraged. They're incensed and outraged.
You're not willing to say Hitler was evil?
Absolutely not, because I'm not going to bow down to your level of good and evil. That's so primitive.
Pardon?
I'm telling the human race.
What purpose would that serve? You want us to give you these lines.
I'm telling you, you have to decide for yourself.
No. I'm asking for parrots.
You want rules.
No, you do.
You want rules.
No, I'm asking you just a fundamental question, a social colloquy in regards to how human beings treat one another.
100 years ago, Napoleon was considered the devil incarnate, the most evil person who ever lived. Now he's forgotten. Everything changes with cultural tides. Morals change with the weather. You can't say something is good or evil. You can only look at human behavior from a realistic perspective.
Well,
So
yes,
if you
yes.
really want to look at what is evil, the book that you have sitting right there is probably the prescription for
The
more
Bible?
evil.
The Holy
That's
Bible,
right.
and if you can tell me this is untrue, tell me.
Throughout history.
Exactly.
In the name of
more people have
Christianity.
died because of the Christian church in the past 2,000 years of its dominance.
Was the Spanish Inquisition
Well,
evil?
hang on. You got
I'm
off
not saying
Hitler
there's-
here. You sidestepped Hitler.
No, let's talk
Oh,
about
okay.
Hitler.
Let's
Whatever you want to talk about.
We'll talk about this in a second.
Let's talk about the Bible. Let's
Fine,
talk about
let's-
Hitler. Let's
let's-
talk about everything.
I don't want to misquote you. In
but
fairness
also,
to
I think
you,
it's interesting. Why do we focus so much on Hitler?
Why are you so fascinated with sex and
I think
Hitler?
this is very
I'm not
interesting.
fascinated with
But
sex,
these
and
are
I'm
the
not
things that you-
fascinated with Hitler. No, I'm not.
Because
sir.
you keep bringing up
No,
the
no, 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 no,
Holocaust
no.
and
See,
the
these wouldn't be
survival.
I'm
a-
sorry,
These are
but
juicy topics for you to address.
those types
And
of,
so is Satanism.
of ad hominem arguments really don't make it in a debate. Okay, I mean that's that's intellectually
Well, what-
dishonest, and you're a brilliant man, and even you know that.
What do you want to get
What
at
I'm
then?
asking
What's the
you-
issue of
well,
our debate?
the issue is, and I'm wanting to be fair to you. I'm not
Well,
wanting to put words in your mouth or misquote you. You're saying, are you then saying that what Hitler did to 6 million Jews cannot be morally quantified and called evil? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not, nor can any act of any human being or animal be judged good or evil. There is
You
no
agree
such
with that,
thing as
Zena?
good or evil.
Yes, I agree with that, because if you look at every war, no matter whether it was the Third Reich or whether it was the Spanish Inquisition or any war, any movement has always caused bloodshed.
Whoever won
There
the
is
war
always-
decided what evil was.
And then the victors wrote history. So you always have to keep that in mind.
If King George had won the American Revolution, George Washington would be remembered as one of the great evil tyrants of all time. History decides what is good and evil.
But now
So
what
if
we're
Hitler had
seeing-
won,
If Hitler had won, obviously, your school books would say Hitler was good, everything else is evil. It's so relative that why can't
But
why can't the
there's a
human
difference.
race
There's a difference
step
here.
out of this
There's
primitive
6 million
argument of good and evil?
6 million corpses.
What about Stalin
What about
and 10
Stalin
million
and 10
Polish?
million?
Let's talk about-
And
let's
what about
talk
the
about it.
Ukrainians?
Sure.
Why is there
Let's
only
talk about
one?
the Ukrainians.
Why is there only one Holocaust, one evil?
Was Stalin?
What about in El
was
Salvador?
Stalin-
There are millions
was
of people
Stalin's
dying right now.
Slaughtering of the Ukrainians through famine a malicious act of evil?
There's no such thing as evil. It was a typical act of a human being. And if you want to look at human history from the day that we came from the primordial swamp that creation began in, what you're calling evil is part of human nature.
It's part of evolution also.
How many? Now,
what
what about the millions of people who were killed in Europe, accused of being witches, children and women burnt at the stake, while crowds of good, pious Christians gathered around and watched them burn for a
It was
Sunday
evil.
celebration?
I will call that evil.
I won't call it evil. I'll say
I
it's
will
human
call it
nature.
evil. I will call it evil, and I will take
Well,
it a
then-
step further to say that it was philosophically the antithesis and totally inconsistent with what the Bible teaches.
Well, maybe the problem is...
Now, hang on. What Nazism did to the Jews was philosophically consistent with the occult Aryan ideas of Hitler. So what I'm saying is...
Well, that's
the
what you're
witches-
deciding, because you're a Christian in 1989. The Christian church rulership in the 1600s would think you were a heretic for saying such things. So all I'm telling you is morality is a relative issue, and nobody can decide what is good and evil.
Is murder relative?
Murder is absolutely relative. When we sent, when I say we, I mean the American government sent our troops to Vietnam to kill people, was it evil? Were those good murderers? Are there good murderers if they're wearing a soldier's uniform and bad murderers if they're not?
Would you say that to the mother of Sharon Tate?
Yes, I would say that to
You
the mother of
would?
Sharon Tate. In fact,
Or do you want to let Charlie Manson out of prison?
that's a whole other issue.
Do you? Do you think he
Manson-
deserves to be let out of prison?
Charles Manson, for one thing, I don't believe is guilty of the crimes he's been accused of. But that's a whole other
You're
issue.
kidding.
Well, how much do you really know
How much do
about
you
all
know
of
about
these
Charles
things that you're
Manson? How
talking
much
about?
do you know about Hitler?
Well,
How much do you know
well,
about
now wait a
anything?
minute. Zena, Charlie has pretty well made his philosophy known. I mean, he's spoken